Right. For the latest installment in our IO and candidate video series, we are pleased to be joined this afternoon by Jacob Lambie from the Texas region, who is now Vice President for Division II for Phi Theta Kappa International. Jacob, thank you very much for your time and for your willingness to speak to our alumni audience and our Kansas-Nebraska region audience as well. We are honored to have a chance now to have spoken with each of the divisional vice presidents, concluding with yourself. So as an intro to our audience, just go ahead and introduce yourself with the basic info and anything else that you would find that our audience you think would find interesting.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor. As you said before, my name is Jacob Lambie. I'm the current Division II Vice President internationally for Phi Theta Kappa. I currently attend Northeast Texas Community College, and I'm a biology major looking to go further on into the medical field.
And as an apology, if I start talking without unmuting myself, please forgive the awkwardness because I already just tried that just now. So let's go to the beginning where you have started at your college and you first heard about and received the invitation from Phi Theta Kappa, and what qualitative factors resonated with you such that it made you want to join and then made you want to become active?
So it's actually an interesting story because I think my introduction to Phi Theta Kappa was a little different than everybody else. Is that I actually looked over the email and kind of thought it was just another scam, which I guess some people do, but just wasn't invested. I kind of pushed it off. And at the time, I had already started my own organization at my college called More Like Than Different. It was for students with disabilities. And why that's relevant is because I was contacted by the PTK advisor, where I had never gone to a meeting, anything like that. And she asked me to come speak at a district meeting. Texas has different districts, and for our District 3, we came and spoke. So I wasn't really involved in Phi Theta Kappa, wasn't a member, wasn't really a provisional member. I just came and spoke because I was invited. And that caught me on my love for PTK, is that I spoke once there. It was a great time, spoke again, and then I started attending meetings. And that's kind of how it all started.
And so then as you're getting immersed in it and you're starting to buy in more and more, was there a particular moment or event as your participation continued to increase that you said to yourself as an aha moment, this is a revelation, this is going to be, I can tell, a major factor of my education and of my life for the future?
Yeah, there definitely was. Because I was only involved in Phi Theta Kappa actually going to meetings for about a week or two before we had the Texas Regional Convention, which, there we elect the new regional officers and everything like that. And our chapter was running uncontested for District 3. And I basically had my advisor tell me that we're going to put you as the District 3 representative. And again, I was not actually a member of Phi Theta Kappa yet. I'd only been involved for a couple weeks, and I said, okay, now I'm going on this wild ride, so I guess I better strap in. So once I came into Phi Theta Kappa and was automatically put into that role, I knew that there was something special about it and that it was going to end up being a very big portion of my time and my investment in college.
So before we get into the candidacy, I do want to just ask a couple of college-centric questions that I always enjoy asking people. For starters, obviously everybody believes who values the college that they attend. Everyone believes that their institution is unique. That's really because every institution is unique and different. What do you believe sets your college apart in terms of how they make it conducive for students to achieve, for students to become involved and set themselves apart as Phi Theta Kappa members?
Well, as you said, every college is unique. And I think every student thinks that their college is extremely unique in certain ways. And I can say that my college is very interesting in a way, is because it's not the typical community college. When I thought of a community college before coming to Northeast Texas, I thought of like the sprawling, Dallas community colleges, things like that. But, we have our campus and we have Cal's across the street. We come from a very low income area, and it's a lot of people going back to get certificates, for workforce programs. So it's not the typical experience you would think of in college. And I think that makes it unique. We have so many varied people and so many varied inputs that have to be thought of when you're going through college, because you're not only thinking of, the kids who graduate high school, which do make up a certain percentage, but I think we have even a larger percentage of people going back to college within this certain institution.
And then in a similar vein, one thing that I always talk about when I go speaking in induction ceremonies and stuff, because it's something that relates to my experience at my institution from when I was a student way too long ago to mention, that there's a profound there's a profound value that the community colleges are offering, particularly in rural areas, because of the scarcity of awareness of the opportunity that that institution presents, that makes a college degree literally 50% easier, so far as I see it. People who might consider college to be too daunting, too financially prohibitive, or whatever other impediment that comes to their mind, thinking of it through this prism of attending a four-year university as a freshman. They oftentimes don't even know the community colleges in their backyard. And that was the case in the city where I lived at the time. I was born in a big city. I've lived all over the place. So for me, I see it all sorts of different perspectives. I see the pros and cons of living in many different types of settings. But in the small rural communities, what you have is a lot of temptation for youth to take their lives in the wrong direction. And I saw that firsthand with the volunteer projects that our organization, that our chapter members were involved with the local health clinic, for instance. It was made a big impact on me because we did a lot of work with that health clinic, and part of their main services was a dental clinic, free clinic for dentists and hygienists to come contribute their time for people who were low income, and many of them were rehabilitating their lives after drug use, particularly with methamphetamines, and with methamphetamines, what that does to people's teeth. And they're trying to get past that scar in their lives, trying to turn their lives around. What that highlighted is the temptations that today's world offers to youth in that specific setting. And there's a temptation that the person can't do any better than what that temptation is offering the person. So go live that life. Mm-hmm. And what the community college is offering to that community specifically, and what I think it offers in a lot of rural settings, is the opportunity for the leadership to make people aware that the degree that they want, or that a college degree, is far more attainable than they ever would dare to dream, because of the community college that they may not even know about. We had people that lived in the city that I lived in who did not know that campus was even there. It was 3 metal buildings in the middle of an industrial park that now has a winery in the backyard. It's a wonderful little institution, and it's the best kept secret in that community throughout the county that it is in. And we took it upon ourselves to try to promote through our activities the presence of our campus throughout the community, so that more people who might not otherwise ever be inclined to even go to college, you don't know what type of person is being missed out on, what type of career, what kind of life that person would have if they don't know about those opportunities. So I give you that speech because it ties into the statement that I give all the time to people, which is that the best and most capable students representing that college to the community are vital, because they are the means by which the college is going to be exposed to people who are the people who need most to know about its existence. And so we were proud when I was a student that the number of degree seekers, associate degree seekers at our college went up while we were active in our Phi Theta Kappa chapter during that time. That's music to our ears, because now these people have it made. They have that bachelor's degree 50% easier than it would have been otherwise. When you have the transferability requirements in our state, where the state has guaranteed the transferability of an associate degree, thank God, the four-year universities respect it, and they seek out those students. Our state is good in that way. So what I try to say is, you have that mantle on your shoulders as a representative of this college. This is what I always tell people. You have that mantle on your shoulders. So that's a great responsibility, but it should be a tremendous source of pride, a tremendous source of ownership. So I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on, through the leadership activities that you've undertaken with your chapter, including running for international office, what does that ever, do you ever take a step back for a minute and realize, my gosh, this is a tremendous opportunity that I am being in the position to expose this college to people who otherwise wouldn't have known about it, and promoting this as an educational opportunity to people who are going to use it to better themselves. In other words, taking the pride of representing your college to the public. So if you could elaborate on that, if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah. So with, on my college, I touched on it a little bit before, but we have a lot of kids coming in to transfer, but we have even more people just coming in to get degrees and do little things. And what I mean by little things is that they're not going for the bachelor's, they're not going for the master's. They have their life. They may have kids, they have a family, they have a career, and they're going to the college to take classes to, either get that raise, better themselves, make them more comparable for other jobs, things like that. So it's very interesting to me because I feel like I may not be a good representative of exactly what the college stands for and how much it helps the community. Because I'm one of the kids who's going in to earn the associates and go on to get the bachelor's. And I think that kind of underrepresents a lot of what our community college does and how much it represents our area and like the good that it does in our area. Because you have so many people that, like I said before, they have families and everything like that. College would be impossible for them. Going to a 4-year, tuition alone, but also the time investment and having to move to a high income area, high rent and everything like that. This college provides the opportunity for them to better their lives to things that they want to get into for basically a very extremely low cost. And also it's right in the backyard and it really helps. So it's a lot of weight on my shoulders, as you said, because I want to represent community colleges, of course, but it's hard when you're only one person and you're only representing one side of the community college. So that's been my goal, is to say, yes, my story is unique within the community college and my community college, but there's so many other amazing stories that they shouldn't just be focused on mine because I've come in and served as an international officer, or I am serving as an international officer. There are so many amazing people who don't have the time to do these kinds of things, but deserve just as much respect and just as much recognition for everything that they do.
And so to pivot to another question, because I always like to get people's perspectives on what the scene is like locally where they are. You mentioned the districts, and I'm happy that you did, because having researched in past years and stuff, you have what I believe is geographically by far the largest region, the most expansive region of certainly in the contiguous United States. And there's a ton of college and a ton of land to cover, a ton of people all together within one region. So on one hand, I imagine it's sort of a challenge because everything is so vast. And that's partially why you guys have districts, I would imagine. But on the other hand, it's got to be, I would suspect, encouraging in that you recognize the strength in numbers that exists for your region in terms of a lot of resources across members, a lot of resources from past members, that no one could ever feel isolated or feel like they were lacking in terms of resources and direction because of just so many people, so many chapters all working toward the same goal. So what in that context, what is it like being part of the Texas region?
The Texas region is such an amazing part of Phi Theta Kappa. And it really is, like, if you want to go to like an in-depth analysis, if you're going to write a paper, I think the Texas region would be the paper to write about. Because when you go into it, you have some smaller regions that have, 20, 30 chapters, and Texas has 92 right now, I believe. And with that, you might have maybe a smaller region that has less chapters, but all the chapters are very similar. Let's say they're all very rural and stuff like that. With Texas, you get a little bit of everything. I mean, you have, like, my college is very rural, then you have the Dallas colleges, that you get so many different aspects of life and different kinds of students because the region is so big and so expansive that it almost feels like its own little world within Phi Theta Kappa. And like we have our own little almost division in a sense of words, because there's so many different areas and different topics. And I think that's one of the really good things that we do with the districts, is that, yeah, you have all these people. District 1 is very widespread. They cover the most ground. District 2 is just population-wise booming because they cover a lot of the major cities. District 3, you kind of have like a half and half, some rural, some not. And it poses an interesting challenge, because I like how you're asking about the kind of challenges that it posts and like what it's like to live in that environment. Is that you, like I said, you have a very diverse population. You have a lot of people coming from different lives, going different places. And it's hard to try to create something that makes everybody happy, which of course you can never do. But even with the chapters being, having 92 chapters, it's hard to try to do a project that touches everyone specifically and touches on the needs of every chapter. So it's really interesting, but it's also a good learning experience as well, because you're seeing that there are a lot of different opinions, there's a lot of different viewpoints, and there's a lot of different ways that you can take projects and different areas of expertise. And to just know that you're not going to make an impact on every single one. And there's some that are always going to feel left out just because of how big the population is. That will always happen. It's hard to do, but you can always try your best to always make sure that you're including that rural chapter as much as you're including the Dallas chapter, or you're including that little chapter that maybe has 5 members that are super active, and then you're including a chapter that has, a 30-person officer team. Obviously exaggeration, but I think you get the point.
And I had earlier this weekend, I spoke with Roxana Martinez, who was Sandra True's campaign manager for her divisional vice president campaign. And, there was a person who was a chapter president and then was a junior advisor. And that whole concept is still staggering to me, that the colleges have the forethought to do stuff like that for members in that way. So it says a lot. You can tell a lot. Like, I'm considering places where I'm going to live because I'm completing my degree. You can tell a lot about what a place is like to live based on what its community college system is like. I sincerely believe that. And the states with the best community college systems are the states with the best Phi Theta Kappa chapters, and they're the states where Phi Theta Kappa membership in the community college is most respected by the four-year university. It's all so closely connected. And I also had a sort of a humorous question in terms of, since I have seen some stuff from your regional conventions, and it's sort of like I'm a nerd for this kind of stuff because I try to consume as much as I can from stuff that comes from other regions. And obviously the 2 regions that I follow the most closely that aren't my own are the ones that publish a whole ton of stuff, which are Middle States and Michigan. But your region has a YouTube channel, which is very nice. They use it, and that's good. They produce a lot of content about what they're doing. So your region deserves to be complimented because they're giving exposure for what your students are doing outside of the region, which is important. But having said that, I just was curious about the regional convention. Do you still do roll calls at those?
We do roll calls, especially at TRC. Our last big convention, roll calls are a very big part of the atmosphere.
Because that's not to be taken for granted, because not all chapters, not all regions, I should say, I don't think use their convention and use roll call as a chance to have it be a skit or what have you, where there's a contest, or at least it's something that people have a chance to get some entertainment out of. Because while there's a lot of entertainment value with this, it's also a way of, hey, these are the faces that represent this college for this year, and that's undervalued. If they, we actually have made a playlist of all of the roll call skits of all the different regions that we've been able to find on YouTube. And 90% of them, as I said, are Michigan and Middle States. There's a few from Texas on there. I'm going to send you one that's actually pretty funny, because there was these guys that were pretending to be arguing, and then this one guy was just standing there in his Charles Barkley jersey, and then he's just standing there doing nothing, and they say, "What do you think?" And he pulls his cap backwards and starts reading just a mile a minute off of his tablet, and it was pretty funny. I won't spoil it as to what music he was using, but I'll send it to you because it's pretty funny. This was about 10 years ago, so well before either of our times at PTK. But it's pretty funny. I mean, I remember the I think DirecTV ad parody where it was this long sequence of events. If you don't join PTK, this bad thing happens, and this bad thing happens, and then when this happens, so don't do this, join PTK, that sort of thing. It was just hilarious. So they do a great job of representing the activities of the region to outside audiences, which are important. And I tried to sell that concept to some of the other IO candidates that I've spoken with over the last week whose regions don't do that, and I'm hoping that it picks up a little bit momentum, because honestly, in Kansas we don't have, I think a lot of people have the spirit stick. We have a teddy bear, Channing Bear. That's the mascot of the region, and whoever wins the roll call wins Channing Bear for the semester. And then there's especially synergy because the Tennessee region, which is super duper active, their mascot is Chandler Bear, and Channing and Chandler are, I guess, still dating. I'm not sure. They're supposed to be boyfriend, girlfriend. We've been pushing for a wedding for a while, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen. But it's been those type of stories. They start off as a joke and then actually turn into something that becomes a source of pride for people as they hand down the region and their chapters from one generation to the next. So it's been a long way of saying that your region does a tremendous job of making sure that everybody's voices are heard, and then magnifying those voices beyond the state line, which means a lot. And so you guys deserve a lot of credit for that, and you guys have a big opportunity then. And I'm hopeful that was part of what parlayed into your success as a candidate because of what your region did, because that's no doubt part of what their objective is to elevate people's accomplishments. So to pivot that into your candidacy now, when did you start getting the inkling and the urge to do something on the international stage, and what sort of was the inspiration for you to pursue international office?
So it was a long journey, and actually I didn't decide to run for international office until really a couple weeks before the deadline. I wasn't one of those people that was planning the year before and building all this stuff. And because I was serving as a regional officer before, of course, and I wanted to devote my time to the regional office. And I really thought that would be the end of my Phi Theta Kappa journey. But I really loved, first off, the atmosphere of Phi Theta Kappa, the family, the fellowship, everything like that. And one thing I really enjoyed is kind of being in a leadership position, because I felt like, I loved coming up with ideas, working with the team and things like that, and being able to make a difference. Because the biggest thing for me was the moments that I saw that we actually did something that somebody liked, or whether we were holding a convention, you saw the people like laughing, smiling, getting along, or we did a project that we saw people get on board with and want to help with. I mean, that kind of stuff makes everything else worth it, because you're seeing a kind of impact in a way. And there's a lot of things you don't get to see the impact that you make. It's just part of life. But with the Phi Theta Kappa projects we did, I felt like we actually got to make an impact. And it was one of the coolest things that I'd ever seen. And I knew that it was because I was on the regional level, like, the little larger level, because I'd been so focused on my own college. And it's amazing to make those individual, connections and do everything like that. But once you even go higher above, you have the chance to do more and more. And that's kind of what my thought process was, is that I want to make even more of a difference. I want to try to make basically a better world and a better organization to do the best we can. And I want to work in that team environment again. I want to represent, the college students with disabilities, with things that they thought they never could go to college with. And that was the kind of whole inkling of me starting to run, is I want to try, because first off, I want to show that somebody who has a disability and who basically struggled through, high school and barely even thought they weren't going to go to college, that they can run for this position. So that was my first thing. And then second, I kind of wanted to get a voice out there for mental health, for other disability accessibility activities, where I joked with my campaign team, I wasn't really focused on winning. I was more focused about spreading the message than anything else.
And it's also worth noting that that's been a common thread amongst the victorious candidates on my point of view,
Yes.
where Mariah and Victoria had their accessibility and neurodiversity causes that were of profound importance to them. So it worked well together, I think,
Yeah.
As a group. And so those issues will be well represented over the coming year. Before we get into what the campaign was like, I realized I forgot to ask a region-centric question or just a chapter-centric question before you started your campaign, or during your campaign, if it covered that. What was your favorite, if you could name one thing, what was your favorite project, volunteer project, or study topic or whatever that you have worked on in Phi Theta Kappa to this point? What provided the fondest memory for you?
I think the fondest memory is it was a regional project we did called #ShareYourStory, which was all about sharing your story before you got to college. It trying to think of the right way to say this, is that I presented the idea to the team and they really liked it. So it kind of turned into a regional project. And because I always had it in the back of my mind, it turned later into kind of a candidacy too, because it's something I cared about. And it was all about, the regional officers. We all shared our story of like, hey, we weren't perfect people. This is where we come from. We struggled, but we came out the other side stronger, and we're still Phi Theta Kappa. And that's the kind of movement we did. And I'll be honest, it wasn't a movement that got, it wasn't like a movement that got 1 million followers. It did okay. But what really mattered to me and what created the fondest moment is that we had people actually come out with stuff that they said they had never told anybody. Like, this was a backstory. I was afraid to tell somebody until somebody else said it first. And all of a sudden you're building this kind of connection of, I used to be afraid. I used to feel like I didn't belong, but because of this happening, now I'm sharing my story in order to inspire others. And to see that kind of fellowship and camaraderie come over people and say, hey, we're a family first, no matter what, it was definitely my fondest moment. It's my favorite moment in office by far.
That's a great endeavor. I might say that's one of the nicest stories I've heard in a while. Now, to sort of now bring it back to your candidacy, you actually sort of have covered this one in the previous two answers, so I probably don't need to dwell on it that much. But in terms of not necessarily your platform, since you discussed that already, but just what you believe are the biggest priorities for PTK in the immediate term.
So I think that the biggest priorities are, we all ran campaigns about different things, but I think it almost doesn't even turn into what our campaigns was about. I think it turns into adapting PTK into this ever-changing environment, especially with things moving online, everything like that. Because, of course, all the IOs have their own like personal things that they're really passionate about. But no matter what, you always have to put your goals kind of behind. You have to put the organization first. So I definitely think, and this is kind of a non-answer, I'll give you that, but I definitely think the biggest thing that PTK is doing, like right now, and we're working on it very hard, is trying to adapt PTK of, okay, we're not seeing each other, we're not having meetings, we're not having like some conferences or being online. How do we adopt that into keeping that fellowship, keeping that camaraderie, and keeping the important aspects of PTK while still keeping the organization, thriving as it always has been?
That's not a non-answer at all. That's probably is the most important thing, and not even close for the coming year, because you guys came on board in a unique way, and you guys are going to probably have a unique year coming up in terms of no one has ever come aboard the way that you guys did, and no one probably ever will. So about your promotion, about your campaign process, before I got into what the experience was typically like from day to day, I do have to ask you about your promotional materials, because I saw your pamphlet, and I have to ask, who came up with the idea of all the bees and I want to be with, who were you the one that were able to come up with that as a pun based on your on your name, or did someone else come up with that?
I am not that creative. I can tell you right off the bat. So this actually came with, it was after I had decided to run for international officer, and I and 3 other members from my college came up to the school on like a Saturday. And it was Tanya Hammonds, Haley Hammonds, and Mercedes Collins, all chapter members, all officers, some of my best friends. And we literally spent 4 hours that day just writing stuff on a whiteboard, thinking, okay, so this is who I am. This is where I want to go. These are all the steps between. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't even describe how big this whiteboard was. It was one of the ones that like cover a wall, right? And I mean, it was just writing all over it. And eventually, Haley, we were thinking of just, because we'd gone through everything. We'd gone through like, what is the campaign going to be about? What do I want to focus on? And then we didn't know that Catalyst was going to be moved online then, of course. So we were planning out like the campaign booth and everything like that. And all of a sudden, Haley was just like, what about that Black Eyed Peas song? Like, I want to be, like the way old one. And she's like, what if we just play the Black Eyed Peas song? Like, I want to be with Lambie. I was like, first off, that's amazing. Second off, I'm going to hate that song. And then after the I want to be with Lambie, we're like, bees, it's easy. And that's where that theme kind of came from. And then we were thinking about, stigmas was a big part of things that I wanted to work on within the campaign, because as I said before, with previous experience with the share your story, it's a very big part of me is I want to show that stigma should not hold you back. They should only push you forward to greater things. And then with the whole bees, it kind of worked really well because you're taking the sting out of stigmas, like bees are stinging. So that's where that whole idea came from.
And for those who aren't familiar with this, the pamphlet was fairly peppered with different cartoon bumblebee type characters and stuff. You couldn't miss it when reading it. Anyway, no. I was planning on asking you about this when we agreed to talk over the weekend, and then on the weekend I started seeing these stories about what's going on in I guess the Seattle-Tacoma area where the invasive hornet is starting to wreak some havoc, and I said, oh no, it's a good thing you got your campaign over before the murder hornet starts to show up. And just to give you an idea, our university mascot is back here, and I've already had several people ask me about it, but the big enmity is Washburn and Emporia State, which is an hour away from here to the south. We're a better institution than they are. I don't mind saying it. Everyone, even down there, will admit we are a better academic institution than they are. Well, they're the Hornets, and so we're all laughing because now they're going to be stigmatized because we have an invasive insect that's made its way to the west coast of the United States. And I mean, I'm laughing, but I mean, it's not funny because the thing is literally poisonous. But still, I'm glad you got your campaign so you could set the tone for your campaign before this news development happened.
Yeah.
It's just so ironic to me that this news story breaks right after I was planning to ask you about your branding. So with that being aside, so when you made the decision to start running and then got into the flow of things, you had the conversion to online obviously serving as a complication. I think I've established fairly well among the candidates that it served as a complicating, not a simplifying influence in the campaign. So what I would ask you is basically, what was the day-to-day like for you as a candidate? What was a typical day for you going to be like while you were campaigning?
So it was very interesting because it was all social media run, obviously, if anybody has not seen the campaign. And I am somebody who was not on social media at all until a year ago. And the only reason I got it was because I had to get it to be a regional officer, because I had to share posts and things like that. So I had become somewhat comfortable with social media over the past year. But when it went online, I was like, oh no. Not because it was going to be hard or anything, but because I don't typically like being on social media. And that's literally what the day-to-day became, is that you're always on social media, you're always answering questions. I mean, for me, I would plan my activities out 3 or 4 days ahead of I'm going to do this video here, this post here, because with my campaign, I like to have a lot of guests on, I guess you would say, people from around, United States, all over, just to have their opinions as well. So actually planning that stuff out I felt like a manager almost. I was like, hey, I need you to, or can you please be here? This time we'll record the video to post this time. And it became a lot of just planning and management. And literally, the mornings and the nights, the first thing you do when you wake up is check social media. The last thing you do at night would be check social media. And I think that's why, you saw so many of the candidates and also the new IO team. Once that, final day hit, boom, everybody was gone off social media. You didn't see any posts because everybody was just this has been my life for the last month and a half, whatever. And it was a trip, definitely.
So what would you say, or were there any tasks or strategies at which you became proficient during the process of this campaign that you think will be useful as you continue your education or embark on your professional career?
Definitely. I mean, planning and management, I'd always been, I'd done a lot of planning and management, but this really refined my skills on what I have to do, how to get things set in time and everything like that. And even now I'm a little interested in going into local politics later in life, because I believe if you're going to make a big difference in the world, it kind of has to be through politics. It's kind of how the world has moved. And just learning how to run a political campaign online has definitely been, I think, one of the good things, because people talk, it was very hard on a lot of us that we didn't have Catalyst in person. But there were a couple of good things that came from actually having to do this campaign online, which one, for me, it got me more comfortable with social media, with Facebook Lives, things like that, and learning how to run a whole campaign process itself. And also, I think the second biggest thing is I got to meet a lot more people, because in Catalyst, this was the biggest thing that I think was a positive of the experience, is during Catalyst, it's so busy that, people will come by your campaign booth for 10 seconds. They'll grab a pamphlet and they'll go, because there were 48 other, candidates. And you only had that 3-day period to kind of make an impact, even with the social media. And once it all moved online, and then we had the extended period because Catalyst got moved back, you had people you were making real connections with. You had conversations, not just like a quick question and they're gone. So actually getting to make that personal connection with everybody and meeting so many people that I know I wouldn't have met if Catalyst had just gone the normal way. It's one of the things I'm thankful for, even though that it was an experience that a lot of us weren't expecting. Being able to meet so many people is definitely a very big positive.
And that's not surprising at all to hear that. I would point out. So now let's go to, because having spoken with, my conversation with Mariah had to be cut short because she had another meeting that came up right afterward. But I did a more detailed conversation, if you happen to see it, with Victoria and Elena on Sunday. And they both told us about the unique experience of the announcement of the results and how that evening worked out. And so just the roller coaster that would have comprised, the fact that it was news to you guys that they were going to do it this way. What was that roller coaster like from when you were given those contingencies and then when you actually found out that you had won?
It was very interesting because, you think, or I think back on it because I've thought back on it a little bit. And if you're at convention, you have all the energy around you. You have like things to distract you, right? Even when you know that, the vote's been cast, you'll find out later, you're still going to be nervous and you're going to be like literally counting the seconds, but you have like things around you. I mean, here it's like you're stuck in a house. You don't know what to do. Everything you keep doing is the same. And once we were actually, I'm not sure how much they told you about the process, but Phi Theta Kappa did it very tactfully where, they got the real reactions because we didn't know, obviously. And once we actually knew, then it was kind of, for me, it was kind of a relief because, of course, I was excited and everything like that. But the second thought was, weight off your shoulders. All the stuff that you've been doing for over a month is kind of over. Now you get to just do what you've been trying to do the whole time and make a difference. And for me, because of course the candidates knew ahead of time because they had to record the reactions and things like that. For me, I enjoyed more not seeing myself win, but seeing the reaction of, people on my campaign team and people close to me, because the moment's coming and you're just watching like the nerves go up and you want to tell them so bad, but obviously you can't. And it was a good moment. It really was.
So let's get into now and this also, everyone else has answered it this way because it is a reality that you guys this year will have to deal with as a very unique IO team. But if we were to assume that next school year is approximately normal, give it just a little synapse of what your roles are in your position.
So do you mean just the average, like what we'll be doing in our position?
Yeah, what would your role typically be if we weren't faced with the prospect of additional continued closures, et cetera?
So of course, and we're doing this anyway, but we'd be making the goals for the region, the international organization itself. And, because of everything happening, our goals are probably a little different than they would be otherwise. But a lot of our entire opportunity is that it's a very big learning experience for us, right? Is that we're kind of getting a very fast-paced 1-year internship in an international corporation. And that's a very cool, just a very amazing opportunity. But for us, it's about trying to represent Phi Theta Kappa. And a lot of what we'll be doing is traveling to, whether it's a regional conference, inductions, things like that, to speak, kind of being a representative in a way. Because Phi Theta Kappa is a nonprofit organization. We have a CEO, we have all the board members, but we're the student representatives in that higher echelon. So we want to represent and show that, hey, we're active, we're doing everything we can for you guys, because first off, you elected us. You thought that we would be good for this position. You thought we'd make a change. So we don't want to let you guys down, because I mean, I feel a personal responsibility. I felt it the moment that my name was said, is that now I have to do the most I can within a year to make this worth it for everybody who decided that they thought I would be a good fit for this position. So a lot of it will be trying to set these goals, trying to do the little things that we have in place while trying to travel, show off that, hey, this is Phi Theta Kappa, this is everything we're doing, and we're trying to make this organization better and better by the day.
So then if you were to share one element of advice with someone who's considering in the future following the path that you've taken to international office, what would that be?
I would definitely say be sure of what you want and have a clear goal in mind. Because no matter, our campaign was a little different with everything that happened. But even if you're running a normal campaign, you're going to have people that, really love you. You're going to have people that maybe aren't on your side. And you have to know that no matter what happens, because, whatever goes through happens with the campaign, just focus on your goals and focus on yourself. It was my biggest, basically ideal that I kept within myself, is that I said, no matter what happens with the campaign, I'm not going to let anything that happens change me as a person or my personal goals or what I want to accomplish. So before you even start the process, know that it's an amazing experience. We need people like you who are passionate and who are going to keep going and pushing forward. And just know that if you have that goal of serving others and have that opportunity to kind of put yourself out there and say, we can make a change, we can make a difference, go for it.
So then to kind of finish the retrospective questions, what character attribute would you most aspire to have when you're gone? The people at your college, at your chapter, or even at the region, to say that you demonstrated in your interactions and your dealings with them. What character attribute would you most strive to have them to have earned them saying that about you when you've completed your journey?
Definitely 100% that I was a servant, because I take it very seriously that I'm here to try to take people's ideas and opinions and to make everything around me better for everybody else. That's how I've always been. I've always viewed myself as that, because it's kind of my goal in life to try to make things better. And if we can impact one person, then that's all that matters to me. It doesn't matter how much work has gone in. If we know that one person's life has been changed or altered in a positive way because of the things that we've done, then that makes me happy. And I view that as a success. So if I can keep that goal in mind and say that, my opinions, my thoughts, they matter a bit, but making sure that we take care of everybody else first and foremost, if I can keep that goal in mind and in my heart, really, throughout this whole campaign or throughout this whole presidency, vice presidency, then I'll have been proud of myself as I've held this position.
And then throughout your tenure so far, throughout your experience with PTK, I know you mentioned your early involvement and people who got you interested in it. Who would you say, if it's one or more people, has been most instrumental in forming the type of person, the type of the journey that you've made in PTK?
So that would definitely be my advisor, Dr. Fulgham, because as I started off, she was the first one who invited me because she heard the organization. Along the way, she was the first person that kind of said that you should be the regional officer. And it was a big deal for me because, as I said before, I was kind of elected to the positions beforehand without a vote, without people say. She was like, I think you're right for this position. I think you can do things if you're put in it. So we're going to go ahead and put you in it. And that was one of the things, is that when I ran for international office, I kind of had that thing in the back of your mind, right? Is that I had never been really elected because I'd run before with all of my leadership things in Phi Theta Kappa. We had ran an uncontested race for division or District 3, And even the officer team, we've kind of just like been elected by the advisor and things like that. So knowing that she took me from where I was, gave me the opportunities to better myself into a position where I could actually run for something and do well and actually come out the other end. I mean, I owe everything to her because she's somebody who started off as my advisor and has now ended up as one of my best friends.
So, now to take it to a more of a prospective perspective, you mentioned that you are intending to complete a degree in biology. Obviously, you're very early in your career compared to somebody like me, so it's not necessarily fair to ask this, but sometimes people do have it nailed down. But if you don't, it's perfectly okay and to be expected. But sort of when this process is done, what do you envision as the rewarding career that you want? What do you want to do with the education that you have striven so far to make a great experience?
So I am one of those people who thinks they have it all nailed down. And I say think because obviously life is life, it changes. But once I'm done with this leadership position, obviously keep progressing in my career with biology. I want to go to medical school to eventually become a psychiatrist. And the reason for that is, as I've said, I've always kind of endeavored to help the people around me, help my local community. And it's one of the things that I saw in my college is that, especially in my local area, in the rural parts of Texas, is that Texas is we're basically the bottom of the list in mental health care. And especially in rural areas, there's almost no supports. So what my plan is I want to complete my degree, become a psychiatrist, and then come back to these rural areas, especially where I am now, to be able to offer that support. Because I know that there's a lot of people that don't have the option to travel because of either financials or time, and trying to put more people out there in situations where, yeah, I'm not going to be making, as much money as you would if you're in a very large city or something like that. But it matters a lot to me that there's people not being treated and who need help. And I think that we as human beings have to do the best we can to all help each other. So that is my eventual career goal.
So then to bounce off that sort of segues into the next question that I was going to ask. And you probably have seen that you're going to get a commercial from me to some extent or another. But it's actually more of a twofold commercial. Part of what I have tried to do throughout this project and throughout a lot of the conversations that I've had, and I've really, my membership, my accomplishments were fairly pedestrian during the time because I was only a member of my chapter for not even quite a year because I was part-time for my first year. I was all state academic team because no one from any regional campus of my college had ever gotten that before. I basically discovered it and my advisor got it for me. In a regular chapter, in a larger chapter, I wouldn't have stood a chance of getting that recognition because there would be so many more accomplished members than I was. But I, along with a lot of the people who I represent in this alumni chapter, have made the most of our membership after the community college. And why that matters to us and why it's special to us is because we have the opportunity to enable members that have come after us to make the most of their experience at the community college and after as well by being a resource. And we feel that we're obligated in many ways to remain connected with PTK so that we, meaning undergraduate students, bachelor's degree students, are the number one audience, the number one credible testimonial that a prospective Phi Theta Kappa member needs to be hearing from, because they are thinking of it in the context most likely of getting their degree and what is the best way to make it the best pathway for a at least bachelor's degree as possible. And when they learn about the scholarship opportunities, when they learn about the opportunities to use all the hallmarks to better yourself as a student, to better yourself as a person, and to earn rewards at the four-year university and to earn recognition, and obviously, of course, ease the financial burden as well. That is where the number one selling job takes place. That's where the most important work can be done. Because if they're hearing from someone who's been out of college for 15 years, they're going to have their own qualitative testimonial that will be about the character and the hallmarks, particularly fellowship, But they need, frankly, the more recent members to do their part. And so that's where we come in. We try to be that testimonial source so that people who are on the fence know the opportunities that are there for them and why they should take advantage of them. And we believe that at the four-year university level, it's the most important time, because that's when you have the most credibility speaking to the past members. So, I mean, the prospective members. So that's where our work comes in terms of trying to lend our expertise in helping members at our former chapters do stuff like applying for scholarships, applying for all-state academic team, participating in their induction ceremonies. We have one of our people who's a professional opera singer, and she walks around all over the region singing the Phi Theta Kappa song at their induction ceremonies. That's what she does to support the community college in our region, and it's very special. I mean, you can see our sites, and you can see probably all sorts of stuff that she's done over the years, and I can send you stuff too. You'll be getting some links from me when we're done with this today. But that is done at the regional level. Yes, the regional alumni associations are vital, especially because they provide scholarships. But we are heavy advocates of the university-based because it is the foremost way to pitch membership, and it enables students who may not have been the most active member, joined because they heard about the scholarship, then got the scholarship and said, wow, I really want to do something because I owe a wealth of gratitude to so many different places for having benefited like this. That's the lion's share of who we represent. We have one person who was a regional officer a few years ago, and it's the person that you've seen me doing the interviews with, but most of them are not even as involved as I was. They're people that joined right before they got their associate degree. Then they see the scholarship, and it makes a lasting impact on them. The fact that we can foster their growth, foster them to support the community college, which is the thing that's most important to them, because what we all have in common is we love our colleges. That is enabling those students to really make the most of their membership. And when we have them turning around and as pretty much for what they've done, only as an alumna, winning international, national, regional awards or what have you. That's such a profound reward. It's bringing both tangible and intrinsic reward into the hands of these people who are really eager to do something to support current members like yourself. So that's my first advertisement, is that when you are in the process, and you're going to be doing a lot of education over the coming years, you have a lot ahead of you for sure. So you will have a lot of opportunity, maybe not necessarily a lot of time, but a lot of opportunity to do so if that's something that your life and your interests permit. So that the other thing I want to advocate, because people don't know this, I didn't know this, is that it obviously depends on where you live. But for you, you're going to be working well beyond a bachelor's degree. And a lot of people do not know that depending on where they live, once you get usually a master's degree in your field, you are actually qualified to teach as an adjunct at a community college. And a lot of people do not know that. And the community colleges need that help. They need people to be a source of good and enhance the learning experience of their current students. Now, I've personally had the opportunity to do that, so that matters a lot to me. It was one of the foremost honors of my life, and when I get established in my career, I hope to continue to do that for the rest of my life, as both a supplemental income and a way to stay connected with the community college. And so those two methods I want to use that opportunity to pitch to everyone that I get a chance to talk to, is that, number one, alumni engagement will be a profound way that all members, once they transfer to the four-year institution and then for the rest of their lives, have a way of supporting the current membership and increasing the awareness of PTK at the four-year university level. You know, Phi Theta Kappa gives out a graduate school scholarship to 2 students every year. I got it a couple years ago. That's how I know. I want to see that at 20. I want to see 50 students get that in the future. They have lots of bachelor's degree scholarships direct from Phi Theta Kappa headquarters. I want to see those increased. I want to see a PhD scholarship. I want to see someone getting a PhD have an endowed scholarship from Phi Theta Kappa as an alum. That would be profoundly helpful, because that's paving someone's way to be a college professor. That's paving someone's way to embark at a different level of their profession. That's an entirely different level. It's someone being a university president someday. You have no idea what that would mean. And most of all, we want to see the endowment at four-year universities continue to increase. And doing all of the things I mentioned is possible by virtue of alumni engagement at the four-year university. So, and then also by the extreme need that these community colleges have for faculty. They can never have enough people teaching their courses, particularly in the summertime when the full-time faculty oftentimes want to take a semester off. That's how it worked for me. So, it's keep those in the back of your mind is my one counsel and my one plea and my one advertisement to you is keep both of those, because you have no idea. We've been able to see our members have their lives dramatically improved many times, and we've able to. I've been around too long, so I've seen people come in, I've recruited them, I've taught them, and they've completed their degrees and moved on. And it's been very special to see that when you're getting the amount of degrees that I have. So it's being around too long, among many other things. But in the context of that advertisement for alumni engagement that I just gave you, I ask this because you've got your professional goals in tow, and you certainly don't have to be nailed down on this either. But what were your transfer plans in terms of where you want to go to complete these degrees, as you said? Because that's something that I try to ask as many people as I can, because even if they don't have that nailed down, that choice impacts some of what I just tried to advertise to you.
Yeah. So I'm actually kind of already committed to a university that I will be moving on to. And I'm very much not the person who needs the big, fancy, showy kind of thing. So I'm actually going to a very small little 4-year called A&M Texarkana. Very low amount of students, not very many buildings, but my perfect environment because I like the smaller areas. So I'm very excited to move on there eventually, but definitely I'm staying with the community college feel even after.
So that then leads me, I already happen to know, so you're one of the people I don't have to ask, because Texas does a great job of advertising all of this nationwide. There is probably nowhere, and it's not surprising, because it's the second largest state of population. It's got probably the biggest community college system. It's elite. But it's not surprising then that Texas is where a lot more of these university-based PTK alumni chapters that I've mentioned, like ours, they have more of those than any other state. And depending on what semester it is, some of their charters lapse. But you've got Texas A&M Commerce, which is where Roxanne is going, and they already have one established. Texas A&M Corpus Christi, which has cropped up of late. Texas A&M itself, University of Texas Dallas, which at one point I think had 400 or 500 members, because obviously that's a big time commuter campus, and tons and tons and tons of students. What it says, though, is that at the statewide level, as we mentioned before, kind of bringing it back to the discussion about your region, is that there's a profound esteem for Phi Theta Kappa at the four-year university system in the state. And that's meaningful. And it's something that you should all be proud of, because you, as students and the people that came before you at their community colleges, earned that recognition. But I was wondering, just from your perspective, to see from your perspective in the transfer process, because I used to be I got access to College Fish. I don't know if you're familiar with that, because it may be dated, but when I was a student, College Fish was a thing. And I used to print every single invite I got from College Fish, even though I had already decided where I was going. It was just a tremendous experience to get a chance to have these institutions write to you and recruit you with Phi Theta Kappa scholarships. It meant a lot. And some of them were just absolute prestige dreams come true, like the letter I got from Case Western Reserve, because I'm from Cleveland, and so it matters. Getting letters from Columbia, Cornell, and Pennsylvania, like I did, where you see the Ivy Leagues are totally rebranding and looking at the community college even more and more, as I've been talking with some of the people this week. And some of them went straight in the garbage, Syracuse. So it's a lot of fun. And I was 24 years old. So for me, it was, it brought a smile to my face, and I built my folder up with all 48 invites that I got. But you imagine to an 18 or 19-year-old kid, that's got to be a huge confidence booster. So anyway, my point is that it means a lot when the student who's a current member sees how the next level values what they've done. You're in an area where there's a lot of value placed on what you're doing. So could you talk about that a little bit and what that's like? Because it's not something taken for granted, because I've spoken with people from alumni associations of one state in particular that I won't mention because we're rolling. I'll mention it to you off air.
Yeah.
who they don't even, you may know who I'm talking about, but they just had their first transfer Phi Theta Kappa scholarship established about 2 years ago. It was very sad. So it's not something to be taken for granted. And that's, so go ahead and elaborate on what that sense of reward is like.
Yeah. So, I mean, the region of Texas we are very thankful for all the alumni support we have. And I think it's very unique, like you said, in Texas, how much support we get, because we know how much work you guys do, especially like our local PTK chapters for alumni. I mean, our regional conferences and things that we do on a larger scale, they would not be possible at all without alumni support. We always have alumni come in to help run these conventions, help be, whenever we need somebody steps up. And without these people like on call, ready to go, I mean, none of this stuff would be possible. And members really need to be thanking the Alumni Association for everything they do.
And I would also throw in there, as you jogged my memory on that, is that in addition to the university-based chapter, something that we don't talk about very often is the community-based alumni chapter, which are chapters that are alumni chapters of a particular Phi Theta Kappa chapter. So the community college has its own alumni chapter of that particular chapter. Yeah. There are also a lot of those too, and they do a great job of supporting their individual chapters. And so what Jacob is referring to here is the fact that they and the regional alumni and the university-based PTK alumni chapters are all working diligently at the conventions and at the region-wide level to be that sense of support. So I realized for the audience, I probably had to clarify that just because I hadn't introduced that subject and you reminded me that I should have. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah. No, thank you for clarifying. And, it's so interesting because with alumni, like you said, there's so many different variations of alumni chapters that happen. And especially with, when we're talking about the chapter specific, like alumni of a specific chapter, I mean, it's because of those alumni associations of that chapter that the chapters themselves actually do so well, because they have the leadership, the guidance. And that's a common problem, is that with chapters, when you have maybe like the lead advisor leaving or really good officer team leaving, sometimes that leadership falls through the cracks and we lose that chapter from being like a 5-star to a 3-star to a 1-star. And having that alumni support there always, I mean, that's just, for the alumni themselves, they're giving the general members the chance to keep the opportunities alive. Because the most important thing in Phi Theta Kappa is not the international officers, not the regional officers, nothing like that. It's the specific member. And you talked about it earlier, how you said you were very unimpressed, I guess, by the things you did. They didn't go far enough. I would actually disagree. We wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be where we are as an organization except for the individual members who are doing things in their local community. And for people who join the Alumni Association to keep the giving, I mean, it's the best thing in the world. Because as you said, I mean, we're all in a way indebted to Phi Theta Kappa. I know I am, for many different reasons, because the experiences I've been given, the opportunities, the scholarships, I mean, and I think it's so important that we continue to give that love, because I'll say it again, is that, we are a nonprofit. We don't take in money, and having people that are passionate about students and continuing to giving this kind of education, it's what we need. And with the continued alumni support and everything, like you said, that you want more scholarships. I mean, I think that's the way that you get scholarships, is increased alumni support, having more people in place and showing that these alumni chapters are here, they're doing things, and they deserve to be recognized and attributed.
Yes, and thank you for your comments as well. That does mean a lot. I appreciate it profoundly. In that context of my commercial and the summary that you just made about your own experiences, have I sold you? Sorry to put you on the spot, but have I sold you on the prospect of a university-based Phi Theta Kappa alumni chapter at Texarkana?
One can say you've sold me.
One thing that's been a consistent strain throughout my conversations this week is it's something that I've taken a particular interest in. Honestly, it happened because of Roxana. Roxana reached out sort of to us, or we reached out to her. I don't even remember how it happened, but it was mostly through our newsletter cover that now she wants to emulate, that you'll see if you see our website. It's just, it awakened an interest in me in terms of getting this experience across, because I thought it was something our audience would be benefit from hearing, since we don't have any content to be able to share right now because we can't do any projects because of the closures. And I said, why don't we talk about Catalyst and give the alumni access from an alumni perspective to what these officers and candidates and their managers are doing and what the experience is like, because it's not only going to be consumed by our alumni, it's going to be consumed by our region. And if you notice, there was nobody amongst all the the international officer candidates from Kansas, Nebraska region. And we've had some officers of late. There have been two, I think, at the international level since I've been involved, Cindy Pemberton and Obi, and I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name, even though I think of him as my son in many ways. I was at his induction. If you know who Obi is, I was at his induction at Highland Community College. I was not the speaker. My colleague Tina Jensen was. But we went up to Highland main campus, which is like 2 hours from where we live in Topeka. And Obi was brand new and he was inducted. And then we found out about 6 months later, he wanted to start an international officer campaign, and then he won. And then my only problem is that I think that Washburn was on his list. And then when he became an international officer, he started getting offers that financially Washburn couldn't match. And then I think Dr. Lynn just basically stole him from us by steering him to her alma mater. So because you could see pictures of him at conventions and stuff wearing a Washburn t-shirt. And this has been like the LeBron James free agency watch for me. I'm sitting here sweating bullets thinking, my gosh, we can get this guy to be our biggest recruiting coup ever. But be that as it may, the point is that I'm hoping that your guys' stories being shared to our audience will inspire people in our region to follow in your footsteps. I was disappointed that no one from our region tried that this year, and I hope it'll change. But the gist of this then became, they are able to give something to me in terms of sharing those stories for our audiences, but I want to provide something for them, and that is the advertisement that I've just given you, because I see that from my perspective as, when I am done, this is going to be, I think, the way that I can best continue to support PTK in my way, because I have a really narrow focused degree of specialization and expertise, and what better way than to share that knowledge on that process, how to get this organization started, not just of the logistics and the X's and O's, and not just about how to do projects, but the basic underlying arguments that you want to make to people, to make to the university as to why it's a worthwhile endeavor, to enlist their support, to enlist the support of new members if you try to create an organization, particularly if it's people that you don't know and you're trying to recruit people you don't know. I was fortunate. I had people that I knew. We got it started so we could actually start doing projects and then use that to recruit people who didn't know us, and it worked out tremendously. But you want to be able to use word of mouth and then actual marketing to people. What is the argument you want to make? What's the case you want to make that resonates with people? I've learned what people value and what your audience is looking for, and what you need to make your priority to win them over. And I think that's important. And, I'm thinking, as I've talked with Leanna this afternoon, I think I've gotten Leanna and Roxana and Cindy and Aziza and several others potentially to try to look at undertaking this type of a project when they transfer, because what I had going for me was some connections that I knew who would be in on this with me. And I had one administrator, the dean of our libraries, who attended a community college, and he was all in immediately. He wasn't in Phi Theta Kappa, but he loved the community college system. He was a student athlete, basketball player at, I don't remember where, unfortunately, but he came to the United States in part for his athletic career from the United Kingdom. And he ended up staying here and becoming a higher education administrator. Yeah. But he was in our corner from day one. What I didn't have going for me, but what we were still able to pull off in spite of the fact that it didn't have it going for me, is backgrounds like what you guys have had at the at the regional international level with Phi Theta Kappa. And someone like you guys making the case for this out of the blue to new audiences, to ears that have not heard this type of message before, it would come off even more credibly than the message that I did, that I planned and plotted away at what do I need to do to make a convincing argument. You would deliver it far more convincingly just because the credibility that your accomplishments with PTK would offer. And so what I'm saying is that you could probably accomplish it with a great deal more ease than I could. And all of you guys who choose to accept it as a mission would have me as a resource. I pledge that to you. Besides the fact, there's plenty of other resources out there, and headquarters is a great help. Your university, if it values Phi Theta Kappa membership, will be a great help to you. But I pledge personally that I would be there, and that's partially why we are so thorough also with our sites, with our documents and such, is because anyone can visit it and learn a great deal about what our projects are. I want it to be a form of a time capsule so that people on their own, without personal consultation, can learn from it and see what they can do at their four-year university. So I will gladly take your verbal commitment and make sure I try to hold you up to it and stay in communication over the years. But I profoundly appreciate the interest you have, and I profoundly appreciate the gratitude that you guys have to the alumni, because I was on the other end of that gratitude not too long ago, and that's how the alumni become active alumni, is through the gratitude to the people that handed it down to them. Because the ultimate objective of every one of you, as you said, whether it's the member down at the most grassroots level doing something for their college just within their own community, or whether it's the person who ascends to the highest possible levels like you have at the international mark, the objective is the same for everybody, and that is to hand down what you've received. And that's the most important thing. And you guys were the beneficiaries of people that worked very hard for you and went to bat for you, and now you are already going to bat for the people that are coming after you. And it's something that can continue even after your 2-year college experience is over. So before we're done with this, and I will tell you that when we're done, I'm going to be sending you some links because, as I said, I think it would be I almost think it would, if you were to try to emulate what we've done, it would be a walk in the park, because you're in Texas. And people will listen very intently, and there's not going to be much of an argument you have to make, because the people will be on board immediately. So, but I will share you the handy tips and that sort of stuff, that something for you to keep in the back of your mind while you got a lot of tasks on your hands this year and potential closures that are going to impact you completing your degree and making the transfer process. But when you get started, and the other thing I would say is I didn't work on this at all for the first year after I transferred. I was getting my feet under me at my college. So if time passes by and you want to do something like this and it hasn't worked for a semester or a year, that's because you are ingratiating yourself at your college. And I almost think I had more credibility because I was no longer new when I tried to make myself the apostle of Phi Theta Kappa alumni at my university. And so that's, that I think was a big plus. And I wish I'd gotten things started a little bit faster, but reality is it's never really worked that way for anybody. So it's required them to get a feel for their college a little bit before they start promoting PTK. People know this person's from the community college, blah, blah, blah. But when they really get to know you as a student, then the case can be made much more forcefully. So don't be surprised if you were to undertake it. That's my message to everybody in that regard. So
I appreciate all the support.
Go ahead. Definitely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate all the support and all the things that you're offering. It's really overwhelming. It's a very good thing you're doing, and I think you're going to make a difference. Definitely.
I also hope, in your case, you won't be blazing a trail in your geographic location, because most of these alumni chapters are in the South. Texas is more than any other, but you would be doing something for your region, because you would be making sure it's even harder for other states to have more. So because Texas already has the most. So I will tell you then, before we get to the conclusion here, I just wanted to see, number one, did you have any, typically we kind of already covered the statement. We always give people a chance to make a statement for alumni across the board, but did you have any questions or type of feedback just for me or us as a group at this opportunity?
I just definitely think that reaching out personally like this is the way to go always with any project, and making these connections. And I think you guys are completely on the right track with what you're doing.
Right.
Very cool process.
I sincerely appreciate your kind words, and on behalf of all of our members, we profoundly appreciate that. We are very happy with the regional and actually the international recognition that we have gotten, and we are hoping, because we won't see the full benefits of that, it's the people that don't know about us yet who are coming in the fall who will reap the full benefits of that. And so it is my sincere hope that, along with all the other people that I've spoken with in the past week, and I don't know if I've done, because Yulia Lane has reached out to me of late, and I'm now going to try to make something happen with her. You were originally the last one on my schedule, but I think there's going to be more. And as I update this playlist, I think other people are going to get interested, because that's what Yulia did. So I haven't gotten Levada yet, but I think I may get a chance to get her, particularly if I keep this going after the semester ends, which I may or may not. So, but just understand it's been a profound pleasure and profound honor, and for you to have done this by giving us the privilege of speaking with you, and also accomplishing so many tangible services for our audience, as you have by all the practical experience and advice that you've shared.
Well,
So,
I appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
I sincerely appreciate your generosity and your time. And I've gone over, so we'll wrap it up now. We'll wrap up the rolling, and then I may have one or two more questions for you before we stop. I think actually there will only be one. So, Jacob, thank you so much. I profoundly appreciate it. And to our audience, we will probably have more of these coming up later. So thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.